The giant in the cage. They'd brought him in chains. Not because the chains held him, but because it made the humans feel safer. Steel links thick as arms, cold metal collars that hummed with shock pulses. None of it mattered. The creature could break them. They all knew it. Deep down, they knew. But he didn't. He just sat there, still as a mountain, eyes closed like he was waiting for the end of the world to arrive, and taken with it. They called him a prisoner, a subject, it. But everyone who saw him, really saw him, knew he was something else entirely. Not a beast, not a tool for war, something older, something watching. 3 people had gone in to study him. Only one came back. Barely. The other 2, gone. The reports were filled with static, broken camera feeds, shattered audio. No one really knew what happened, but the silence from that cell ever since said enough. And then, one day, Jace arrived. No one expected much from him. He wasn't military. He wasn't even supposed to be on base. Just a language specialist, borrowed from the science fleet, barely 30, with a coffee stain on his jacket and a notebook full of alien scripts. They called him the bookworm behind his back. Some even laughed when he volunteered to try. He's not a soldier, they said. Exactly, Commander Hess replied. Maybe that's why he'll survive. They opened the reinforced doors. The room beyond was dim, humming with energy, and at the center sat the giant. 8 feet tall, broad as a tank, with skin that shimmered like burnished metal. Not armor. It was his skin. His head was bowed, thick dread-like cords of muscle hanging like vines, unmoving. Jace stepped in without armor, without a weapon, without backup. The doors shut behind him. For a moment, nothing. Just silence. Then, slowly, the giant raised his head. His eyes were unlike anything Jace had seen. No pupils, just pale blue rings that swirled like liquid glass. Not hostile, not afraid, just aware. The giant looked at him the way a person might look at a candle. Curious, faintly amused. And then it spoke. "You are not afraid," the giant said, in perfect English. Jace's breath caught. His mind raced. The linguists had tried for weeks. They said the giant didn't understand, that he was mute, a blank slate. They were wrong. "Not yet," Jace replied quietly. The alien's lips curved, not a smile. Something deeper, something like recognition. "What is your name, human?" The voice was low, echoing, but gentle. There was no growl, no threat, just gravity, like hearing a mountain speak. "Jace Rowan, linguist, civilian. I'm here to talk." "Talk," the alien echoed. "That is rare." Jace took out his notebook, slowly, like he was reaching for a bird perched on his palm. "Do you have a name?" The giant looked away, as if the question itself was heavy, painful. Then, softly, it spoke again. "I was once called Rokai, but no one has said that name in many years." Jace's fingers trembled. He stared at the page. The name, it was familiar, impossibly familiar. "I've heard that name before," Jace whispered. Rokai's head tilted. "Impossible." "I dreamed it," Jace said, almost to himself. "Years ago. I didn't even know why. Just a voice in the dark, calling out, saying that name." Rokai rose, slowly, until his full height dwarfed Jace like a tree over a single leaf. But he didn't step forward, didn't threaten. He looked down with a strange softness. Not pity, not curiosity. Something else. "Then maybe," Rokai said, "you are the one they feared." Jace looked up, heart pounding. "Who?" Rokai turned back to the corner of the cell, the chains rattling faintly as he moved. "The ones who sent me here," he said. "The ones who wanted to break the bond." "Bond?" Jace asked. Rokai didn't answer. But Jace knew, somehow, that this was just the beginning. That the bond, whatever it was was already starting, and he had no idea what it would cost him. A language of silence. The next day, Jace walked into the facility without being told. No one tried to stop him. Not because they welcomed him. Most didn't even speak to him anymore, but because they didn't want to be anywhere near that room. Some called it cursed. Others said the alien could melt your mind if you looked into his eyes too long. Jace didn't care. Not after the dream he had last night. He had woken up in sweat, gasping. Not from fear, from memory, but not his own. Burning skies, giant trees collapsing under flame. Bodies, human, alien, scattered across black soil. And in the middle of it, Rokai, kneeling over something small, something broken. A child. A girl with glowing eyes just like his. Jace hadn't told anyone. How could he? How do you tell people that your dreams are leaking into someone else's trauma? When he entered the cell, Rokai was already standing, waiting, as if he knew Jace was coming before he even arrived. "You saw," the giant said, not as a question. Jace didn't answer. Not right away. He just nodded. They didn't speak for a long time after that. They didn't need to. Something was changing. Not just between them, but within them. Jace could feel it. His heartbeat matching the hum of the room. His thoughts drifting toward words he didn't know yesterday but somehow understood today. Alien symbols etched in his notebook began to make sense. Patterns revealed themselves. Meaning bloomed like ink in water. Rokai watched him with those endless eyes. "It has begun," he said finally. "What has?" Jace asked, though part of him already knew. "The bond." Jace frowned. "What does it mean?" Rokai walked to the far wall, the chains clinking softly. He pressed a hand to the metal surface. His palm glowed faintly. Then, without warning, the entire wall flickered, shifting from solid steel to a shimmering illusion. Behind it, a mural carved into alien stone. Ancient, hidden, untouched. Jace's breath caught. Images of giants, of humans, of war, of unity. And at the center of it all, two figures, one tall, one small, reaching for each other across a gulf of stars. "Long ago," Rokai said, "our kind and yours were not enemies. We were bonded, not just in battle, in thought, in spirit. We called them the mirror souls. One alien, one human, chosen, united, made stronger than both." Jace stepped closer, unable to look away. "What happened?" "Fear," Rokai said simply. "Jealousy. Betrayal." He turned to Jace, and something shifted behind those eyes. They broke the bonds, hunted those who carried it, burned the worlds where it began. They said it was unnatural, too powerful, too dangerous, so they erased it. Jace swallowed hard, but not completely. Rokai shook his head. "One survived. Me." And then his voice dropped. "Until now." Jace's knees felt weak. Not from fear, from understanding, from the weight of something ancient waking up inside him. The bond wasn't just psychic. It was biological, spiritual. It changed you, slowly. And if you let it finish, you'd never be the same. "I'm not sure I'm ready," Jace admitted. Rokai looked down at him, the barest hint of something like sorrow in his gaze. "Neither was I." They sat together in silence after that. Not like prisoners, not like enemies, like something older, like two pieces of a puzzle trying to remember how they once fit. Back at the control room, behind tinted glass, Commander Hess stared at the screen. He turned to his assistant and whispered, "Shut the program down. Now." The assistant blinked. "Sir." "That bond," Hess said, "if it completes, we'll lose them both. And maybe the war." He didn't mean the war that had passed. He meant the one that hadn't started yet. Forbidden bond. The facility had changed. Jace felt it in the way people stopped looking him in the eye, in the way the halls seemed quieter, but not peaceful, like a breath held too long. Tension hung in the air like smoke before a fire. He wasn't allowed full access anymore. His clearance hadn't changed, but the behavior around him had. Doors closed a little faster when he passed. Hushed voices stopped when he entered the room. They were watching him now. And not just him. Ever since Rokai revealed the mural, Jace had spent every night writing, sketching, remembering things he never learned, things that hadn't been taught in any academy or downloaded into any neural implant. Images appeared in his mind like waking dreams, patterns in alien language, fragments of memory, flashes of emotion that didn't belong to him but felt like home. And the dreams were getting stronger. In one, he stood on a ruined moon, holding a blade of white light, while Rokai fought beside him, roaring against machines shaped like spiders. In another, he saw himself as a child, except he wasn't a child. Not human, not entirely. The bond wasn't just evolving. It was awakening something inside him. Rokai, too, had changed. He moved with less caution, as if the walls no longer mattered. He laughed once, just once, when Jace made a mistake in pronunciation. It wasn't mocking. It was familiar, soft, the laugh of someone who had once forgotten what laughter felt like. "You are becoming more," Rokai said one afternoon, as Jace repeated a ceremonial phrase. "You are no longer just Jace." "Then who am I?" Jace asked. Rokai didn't answer right away. Instead, he stepped closer, towering over him. "You are becoming Kaisha, a mirror soul." Jace had seen that word carved beneath the ancient figures in the mural. He had written it in his dreams without knowing what it meant. Mirror soul. But before he could ask more, the alarms blared. Red lights pulsed. Lockdown protocols activated. The walls around the cell thickened, sliding metal sheets forming a second barrier. Armed guards poured into the corridor outside. Someone shouted Jace's name. They weren't here for a drill. They were here for him. "What's happening?" Jace asked, but the answer came in a clipped, cold voice from the intercom. "Jace Rowan. Step away from the subject. Security breach detected in your neural logs. Exit the containment zone immediately." "Neural logs," Jace muttered. "They scanned my dreams." Rokai stepped between Jace and the door. His body, vast and calm, blocked the path like a mountain against a storm. "They are afraid," he said. "Of what?" Rokai leaned down. "Of what you might become." The door opened. Jace's former friend, Lieutenant Saren, stepped inside, blaster drawn but not aimed. His face was pale, conflicted. "Jace," he said, "they're going to end the program. Today." Jace's chest tightened. "Why?" "Because you completed the second stage of the bond last night. Your brainwave signature doesn't match baseline human anymore. They think the alien is controlling you." "He's not." "I believe you," Saren said. "But they don't." Rokai stood tall, silent. His eyes met Saren's. Something passed between them. Old pain. Maybe recognition. Maybe warning. "You have to come with me, Jace," Saren said quietly, "or they'll use lethal force." But Jace didn't move. Instead, he turned to Rokai. "How do we finish the bond?" Rokai stepped forward, slowly removing the shock collar around his own neck. It sparked, screamed, and fell dead to the floor. Then he offered his hand. "If you accept," Rokai said, "you will no longer be just a translator. You will carry the voice of a forgotten world. You will feel what I feel, bleed when I bleed, live as one, and they will fear you more than they ever feared me." Jace hesitated, not because of fear, because he understood the cost. He would lose everything he had ever known. But maybe that was the only way to protect what came next. His hand touched Rokai's, and the cell filled with light. Outside, alarms went wild. Sensors overloaded. Guards scrambled. Power flickered across half the facility. And deep inside the bond, Jace heard Rokai's voice not in words, but in something deeper. Not speech, but memory. And behind that memory, something stirred. Something ancient. Something waiting to wake. Hunted. When the light faded, Jace collapsed. His skin felt like it was buzzing, like tiny sparks were crawling beneath the surface. Every heartbeat echoed in his ears, a slow, heavy drumbeat that wasn't his alone. He opened his eyes, and for a moment, the world looked different. Not just clearer, but deeper, like he could feel the weight of the metal walls, the vibration of boots outside the door, even the pulse of fear in the guards who didn't dare enter yet. Rokai knelt beside him, his breath slow, controlled. "You survived," he said softly. Jace sat up, wincing. "What did we just do?" "We finished the first binding," Rokai replied. "Our thoughts are not separate anymore." "I can feel you," Jace whispered. "And you." Then the door exploded. Not from an attack, but from a signal. Override. Someone at the top had made the call. "Kill protocol authorized," came the mechanical voice from the hallway. "Terminate subject Rokai, and compromise asset." Jace barely had time to react before the first stun blasts hit the walls. Blue arcs of energy hissed past his head. Rokai surged forward, faster than any giant should move. His arms became shields, metal-hard skin deflecting shock rounds. He didn't attack. He just moved between Jace and death. "We have to run," Jace said. "Not run," Rokai corrected. "Retreat with purpose." They blasted through a service hash Rokai had known about, but hadn't revealed until now. As they moved through the maintenance shafts, Jace asked, breathless, "You memorized the layout." "I've been here longer than you," the giant said. They slipped through layers of steel, fire, and sirens. Jace could hear the chaos following them. Dogs barking, drones hovering, boots pounding. The whole base was hunting them. Not because they were dangerous, but because they couldn't be controlled anymore. Outside, it was night. A black sky pierced by pale moons. They sprinted into the dense edge of the terraformed wildlands. Trees, twisted and glowing faintly from the altered soil, rose like claws. Behind them, drones scanned, shouted warnings. Jace's heart hammered, lungs burning. He should have collapsed, but he didn't. Whatever the bond had done, it was changing him. They ran for hours. Eventually, they found shelter in an old alien bunker, half buried beneath stone and roots. Rokai sealed the entrance with an old command phrase that made the air shimmer as it locked. Inside, it was quiet. Jace sat against the wall, sweat pouring down his face. His hands trembled, not from fear, but from adrenaline, from power. "What's happening to me?" he asked. Rokai crouched nearby. "You are becoming Kaisha. Your body is adapting. It will be painful, but it will also make you stronger." Jace leaned back and stared at the ceiling. "They're going to come after us." "Yes. They'll say you corrupted me." "They already do." Silence stretched between them, thick with the weight of what had just begun. Jace turned to Rokai. "Why me? Why now?" Rokai's eyes narrowed. "Because you listened. Because you were willing to see. Because something ancient inside you answered when I called." Jace didn't reply. Instead, he opened his notebook. The pages were filled with symbols now, alien writing that shimmered faintly even in the dark. He hadn't written it. At least, not while awake. He turned to a page near the back. There, in a symbol shaped like a spiral breaking open, were 3 words in the alien tongue. He didn't know how he understood them, but he did. The Second Awakening. Rokai's voice rumbled softly behind him. "That is what comes next." Suddenly, a sound echoed in the bunker. Not from the outside. From inside Jace's chest. A second heartbeat. He froze, felt it again. Thump thump, thump thump. His eyes widened. Rokai nodded slowly. You are no longer just human. And Jace, for the first time, wasn't sure if that terrified him or set him free. The giants passed. The storm outside raged for 3 nights. Acid rain hissed as it hit the jungle leaves above the bunker, steam rising from the impact. It was the kind of rain that stripped skin if you stayed out too long, a side effect of years of aggressive terraforming and careless mining. The jungle pulsed with a kind of eerie silence between strikes of lightning, like the entire world was holding its breath. Jace lay on the cold floor of the ancient bunker, shivering but not from the cold. His body was still changing. He couldn't explain it. His senses were sharper now. He could hear insects breathing beneath the moss, sense drones flying overhead even before their engines hummed. The second heartbeat inside him had grown stronger. Steady, powerful. It wasn't separate anymore. It was his. And yet, it also belonged to Rokai. The bond was no longer just a connection. It was a fusion. And still, there were questions. So many questions. On the 4th night, Jace couldn't take it anymore. He turned to Rokai, who sat like a statue beside the sealed doorway, eyes closed, unmoving. Why did they erase the bonds? Jace asked. Why did they lie? Rokai opened his eyes. The glow in them seemed dimmer tonight. Tired. Haunted. Because they feared the truth. What truth? Rokai didn't speak right away. Instead, he placed one massive hand on the floor. The room responded to his touch, ancient alien tech still alive. A soft light rose from the stone beneath them, and the walls began to ripple, transforming into images, memories, moving and alive. This world was not the first to fall. Rokai began. There were others, whole planets, bonded worlds, where my kind and yours lived side by side. Not as masters, not as servants, as equals, as halves of a greater whole. Jace watched in silence as the images showed humans and aliens, giants like Rokai, fighting together, building cities, raising families. Our bond was once a gift, Rokai continued. It allowed knowledge to flow freely, pain to be shared, peace to be protected. But with that peace came something humanity wasn't ready for. He looked at Jace. Accountability. The images changed. Betrayal. Fire. Soldiers executing bonded pairs. Cities burning. Towers crumbling under orbital strikes. And at the center of it, a council of human leaders, cloaked in black, voting silently to end the bonding program. Forever. They said we were manipulating you, Rokai said. They said the bond corrupted the mind. They feared what they couldn't control. So they erased us, turned us into weapons, or monsters. The last image was of Rokai, much younger, holding the hand of a human girl, both surrounded by bodies. Jace couldn't look away. Who was she? He asked softly. My first mirror soul, Rokai whispered. She died in my arms when the soldiers came. The pain in his voice wasn't just old. It was fresh, living, like an open wound that had never healed. And now, Jace asked, why bond again? Rokai looked at him, his expression unreadable. Because I saw something in you I hadn't seen in generations. You didn't reach for a weapon. You reached for understanding. Jace swallowed the lump in his throat. They'll never stop hunting us. No, Rokai said, but we don't have to run anymore. He opened a panel in the floor. Beneath it, a crystal device pulsed with soft blue light. This, he said, is a beacon. It was made for one purpose, to summon the last of my kind. The scattered remnants, the forgotten giants hiding across the galaxy. Jace stared at it. You want to bring them here. Not to fight, Rokai said. To show the truth, to stand before humanity, not as weapons, but as what we truly are, and what you have become. Jace hesitated. They'll see that as war. Then let them, Rokai replied. Sometimes peace must be shown with strength. He handed Jace the beacon. Only you can activate it now. Your bond makes you the key. Outside, the storm quieted. A stillness fell over the jungle. Jace held the beacon in his hands, its light pulsing in time with both his hearts. And in that moment, something shifted inside him. Not fear, not hope. Something stronger. Resolve. Then let's show them, Jace said. Let's show them who we really are. Death Valley. The beacon pulsed once. Then again. A soft, echoing rhythm that vibrated not just through the bunker walls, but through the ground beneath their feet. It sent a signal not by frequency, but by memory. Jace felt it sink into his bones, like a song he had never heard yet somehow remembered. It traveled faster than sound, faster than thought. It didn't just call the others. It awakened them. And somewhere beyond the stars, old giants turned their heads toward a distant light and began to move. But down on the ground, in the wild jungles of the colony world, there was no time for miracles. Only war. The drones arrived first. Sleek and fast, their rotors whispering death as they slipped between the trees. They didn't fire at once. They scanned first, counted life signs, marked coordinates, measured threat levels. But the machines weren't ready for what Jace had become. He walked out of the bunker with Rokai behind him, eyes glowing, skin humming with something not quite energy, not quite heat. Target acquired. One of the drones spoke aloud. And then it fired. Jace raised his hand without thinking. The blast struck him full in the chest and scattered like dust in wind. It didn't hurt. It didn't even singe his clothes. The bond had hardened him, layered him with something new. Not armor, not shield. Understanding. No more running, Jace whispered. Rokai stepped forward, placed a hand on the earth, and whispered something in the old tongue. The ground split, not violently, but like it had been waiting to open. Roots curled away. Stones shifted. And beneath the jungle floor, an ancient structure began to rise. A tower, silver, bone-like, carved with light, pushed up through soil and vine like a buried god returning to the surface. It wasn't a weapon. It was a voice. This is a truth stone, Rokai said as it rose. It speaks memory. The drones didn't care. They kept firing. Missiles, lasers, nets. Jace didn't flinch. He moved through it all like wind through flame, every motion faster than thought, guided by something deeper, by Rokai's instincts, now fused with his own. And then the human soldiers arrived. Drop pods smashed into the clearing. Boots hit mud. Orders screamed. Dozens of them, armored, armed, afraid. Not just of the alien giant now, but of the man beside him. The hybrid, the traitor, the one they could no longer explain with charts and science. Jace raised his hands. You don't have to fight us, he called out. You don't have to fear us. But their commander stepped forward, face hidden behind a visor, voice cold. You bonded with a threat. You're no longer human. Jace looked down at his own hands. They still looked like his, but they weren't. Not entirely. And yet, for the first time, he didn't want to be just human anymore. He stepped between the soldiers and Rokai. Then shoot me, he said. Shoot us both. Guns raised. But something happened. The tower behind them began to glow. And it spoke. Not in sound. In memory. Visions poured out like light. Human children laughing with giants. Cities built by two races side by side. Stories once buried coming alive in the minds of everyone present. The soldiers froze. Some dropped their rifles. Others fell to their knees. They saw everything. The betrayals. The silenced truths. The bonds that could have saved generations. One soldier whispered, "This isn't what we were told." Another removed his helmet and wept. But the commander didn't bend. "Kill them," he barked, "before it spreads." But it was already too late. From above, the sky cracked open. Ships. Massive, curved like wings of light. The others had arrived. The last giants. They descended slowly, silently, surrounding the clearing like old kings returning to their throne. Rokai stepped forward, hands raised in welcome. The air pulsed with power so ancient it felt holy. And then one of the giants knelt before Jace. Not before Rokai. Before Jace. "Mirror soul," she said in the old tongue. "You carry more than bond. You carry choice." And in that moment, Jace realized something terrifying and beautiful. He wasn't just bonded. He was the bridge between the broken past and the future that still might be born. The last bond. The sky didn't roar when the giants arrived. It whispered. Massive vessels hovered like silent guardians above the canopy, their shapes fluid and alive, designed not for war but memory. They didn't descend with fire. They drifted down like falling leaves, touching the broken jungle with a reverence that felt ancient. The humans, soldiers, engineers, command staff, stood frozen beneath the shadow of ships that weren't just built. They were grown, carved by time and memory and purpose. And all of them had come for Jace. He stood at the center of the clearing, Rokai at his side, the truth stone glowing behind them like a second sun. The soldiers who had once raised rifles now lowered them slowly, eyes wide, no longer certain who the enemy was. Many were whispering, to themselves, to each other, about what they had seen, about the visions burned into their minds. Not orders, not lies, truth. Jace wasn't breathing like a man anymore. Not fully. His lungs had shifted. His vision no longer blinked in frames but flowed like liquid, able to track every twitch, every heartbeat, even the rustle of leaves from miles away. His voice was still his. His hands were still his. But inside, something vast and old was awake. A voice from above called out in a language half lost to stars. Jace understood every word. You carry the bond, but do you carry the will? Jace stepped forward. I do. The largest of the giants descended from her vessel, taller than Rokai, skin like obsidian woven with silver lines. She knelt before Jace, not in submission, but in offering. You may call the council, she said, if you still believe peace is possible. Jace looked at the soldiers, some afraid, some broken, many silent. He turned to Rokai. Is it? Rokai looked at him the way a mountain might look at the rain. Peace was never impossible, he said, just unwanted. Until now. Jace activated the truth stone one last time. And across every colony, every outpost, every Earth-controlled network, the message was sent. Not a broadcast, a memory. It showed humanity's betrayal, the slaughter of the bonded, the pain of giants who once protected their mirror souls. It showed Jace, not as a warrior, not as an alien, but as a bridge, a man who stepped into a cage and chose to listen instead of judge. The response from Earth Command was immediate. One voice, calm, controlled, afraid. You have violated protocol. Surrender yourself and the alien delegation, or we will retaliate. Jace looked up at the sky, toward the signal tower hidden in orbit, and he made a choice. He stepped into the center of the Truth Stone's ring and placed his hand on the core. Rokai stepped beside him, then the matriarch of the giants, then the kneeling warriors. Jace spoke aloud, not just to the humans on the ground, but to every planet watching. I am Jace Rowan, born of Earth, bonded to Rokai of the Silari. I am not fully human anymore, but I remember what it means to feel, to choose, to forgive. You fear what I become because it reminds you of what you gave up. But I did not come to conquer you. I came to offer you a way forward. He paused. The beacon behind him hummed louder. I will not return in chains, not because I am a threat, but because I am free. And so are you, free to see, free to remember, free to choose peace. He stepped back and let the memory of the bond flood the skies once more. For one long moment, Earth Command was silent. Then, the signal cut. No attack followed. Just Silence. Rokai turned to Jace. They are thinking. Not ready, but not reacting with fear. That is the first step. Jace nodded slowly. What now? Rokai placed a hand on Jace's shoulder. Now we build again. In the days that followed, the giants helped plant new cities, half grown from crystal and vine, half built from steel and stone. Human children sat beside silari teachers, learning the old stories. Former soldiers volunteered to be bonded, not as warriors, but as witnesses, to hold the memories that had been erased. Jace didn't become a king or a savior. He became something else, a keeper. He stood at the edge of the new dawn with Rokai always nearby. They rarely spoke now. They didn't have to. What passed between them ran deeper than words. One day, a child approached them, wide-eyed curious. "What's a mirror soul?" she asked. Jace knelt beside her and smiled. "It's when two hearts choose to beat as one." She tilted her head. "That sounds scary." "It is," Jace said gently. "But it's also the bravest thing we can do." And somewhere, far across the stars, the last pieces of the broken past began to breathe again. Not in anger, not in silence, but in hope.